Previously on Maplestory the novel, Sacred Tears.
I wouldn't do that if I were you.
You are Haim?
My brother and I sent out a more desperate call. Still, only few answered.
Is there nothing that can be done?
If there is, I'm sure you will find it, White Mage.
And now the continuation of Chapter 7, Part 3.
Tell me something, Haim. You said that you have been walking amongst us humans for millennia. Why hasn't Ariel or Nanahuatsin done the same?
Haim smirked, looking in their respective directions.
Ariel can't walk here because her power would warp time everywhere she stepped, mostly for the worse. Nanahuatsin is the deity of light, and as such, he can never be seen directly. His power would blind or obliterate anything near to him.
Dane nodded his understanding and walked away sadly, without hearing the traveling blessing of Haim.
I know I've not been the best of supplicants, but I have one more request.
Dane said before walking too far. Haim's face broke into a smirk before laughing softly.
Trust me, White Mage, you are far from the worst. What else troubles you?
He answered, putting a hand to Dane's shoulder.
My grandfather, Vusron, he is a shaman of the buried city Aswan. He is held captive by a shamaness named Hilda, who has used every citizen of that city to create a potion. My grandfather is the sole member of my family remaining, and I wish to rescue him. However, I lack the power to do so. Would you grant me this ability?
Haim appeared to think for a moment, looking here and there as he walked away a short distance, crossing his arms.
Your grandfather is Master Vusron?
Haim asked with surprised interest.
Yes.
Dane answered.
I knew Vusron well, one of the many people I personally called to be a bishop. But alas, there is nothing that you or I can do for him. Being the only one maintaining Aswan's power, his life force is now inseparable from it.
Dane furrowed his brow and clenched his jaw.
Meaning?
Meaning that he is already beyond my power. He has been maintaining that power for so long that he can no longer leave its presence. When was the last you spoke with him?
Haim asked with a slight edge in his words. Dane thought back, trying to remember his last visit. The only event that came to mind was near the beginning of his relationship with Menodora.
Quite a while, I'm afraid.
Dane muttered, looking down to his hands. Haim sighed heavily.
Then, somewhere in that time is when Hilda made him a prisoner. I'm sorry, White Mage. There is nothing that I can do. You would save him only to bury him.
Dane's shoulders slumped, nodding his thanks to Haim.
Oh, and before you go, White Mage, I heard my sister Ariel has taken quite a shine to you.
The deity smirked, winking to him cheekily.
I would say, be careful not to break her heart, but that light shining in your eyes says you've already done so.
Haim smiled, putting a hand on Dane's shoulder and squeezing. Dane tried to remain blank, but the sheer strength that Haim produced in his grip made Dane falter, finally wincing as Haim let go and patted his back.
I say this as a friend. It's been quite a while since I've seen her genuinely smile. Try not to mess it up,
he said, giving him another traveler's blessing and turning back to the village. Dane rolled his sore shoulder, his thoughts returning to his grandfather.
So that's it. Nothing can be done for my grandfather, the world, or for those that have been haunted by darkness?
He asked himself. He reached the tree's outer branches 3 days later, hardly feeling the rain that soaked his clothes within minutes. He spent his life looking for a way to eliminate the darkness, and now his life felt empty with the news of impossibility. Countering it may be the only option now. If he were to counter it, though, he couldn't do it alone. He would need to wield the ultimate light once more.
Is there a way to find it again?
He thought. A week later, he found himself at the house where he had stayed with Ephenia.
Would it be alright to find that light again, Menodora? Even if it isn't you?
He thought, looking up to the brightly colored sky as the sun sank low over the horizon. She didn't intend to hurt Dane, not him. But her anger boiled so violently she lost her awareness of the power she exuded and injured him. How could she have hurt someone she loved? Ariel extended her mind once more, following Dane as he trekked to Haim's tree, almost laughing outright when he hadn't noticed Haim standing right there, offering his help in the town. But when Dane was granted the meeting, it was as Ariel suspected. The darkness was not so easily or quickly dealt with. With her curiosity sated, she recalled her mind and sat in silence, trying to restart her duties as a goddess. Dane made her see that she may have been hurt, but it didn't excuse her from obligations to Eusoria. Dane was a human, in pain, and he still saw to his duties, so how much more did that mean for her as a goddess? As she tended the time stream one day, she turned her mirror of time to the great disaster. No changes appeared. In fact, the great catastrophe had become more ominous and even more disastrous than in the past. Despite all her power, she could not see its cause and take steps to avoid it.
I do not think it is because you cannot see it, but rather that you will not see it.
A monk of the Red surmised, watching her mirror of time.
What do you mean, monk?
Ariel asked shortly, unaware that anyone else was watching the mirror with her.
The cause of the disaster that you are seeing. You have blinded yourself to it because you do not wish to see it as such. Be wary, goddess.
Ariel lowered her brow as the monk stepped away. The monks of the Red had such an irritating way of speaking in riddles that made the obvious seem so nonchalant. But they had never steered her wrong in the past, so she must widen her gaze to try and see the thing she had blinded herself to. As she stared long and hard into the mirror, she felt a touch on the small of her back. It was a firm pressure, as if to pull her. She then felt a gentle brush against her cheek, the ghost of a life that seemed so far away now. She leaned into the feeling and pulled her arms around herself, remembering the gentle but urgent pressure she felt with Dane's arms around her.
Dane!
She breathed, realizing that he must have returned to the clearing to find her body limp and unresponsive. He couldn't have thought she was dead. Could he? She was, after all, a goddess. Her interaction with him was only through the use of, as he called it, a pseudo-body she had left behind. So maybe he did think she was dead. She went to her chambers and lay down, closing her eyes and extending her mind into the body once more. She opened her eyes as Ephenia and heaved in a breath. She found herself tightly held as Dane wept over her, loosening his grip when he felt her respond.
Ephenia, are you...
I'm here. What's wrong?
The goddess asked, sitting up on her knees and putting her hands on either side of his head.
I thought you were...
Ephenia smirked and brushed a hand across his cheek.
No. I simply pulled my mind back. I'm here, Dane. I'm here as long as you need me to be.
She soothed. Dane gripped her wrist, leaning his head over and kissing the inside of it. There was a small glimmer of hope that he could find the ultimate light again, but he would need help to do it. Ephenia led him to a cliff, giving them the perfect view of the sunset, lighting the sky ablaze.
What made you come back?
Ephenia asked, fighting the urge to move closer to him, unsure of what their relationship was.
I'm not sure. After a meeting with Haim, I simply came here. Perhaps the reason this spot of darkness won't go away is that I don't want it to. What if letting it go would mean forgetting Menodora?
Ephenia sighed. It stung to hear him talk about her when he knew what she felt for him. At least, she hoped he understood.
Just because you heal doesn't mean you'll ever forget. You two were bonded in ways that will never come again. You will never forget Menodora, but that by no means bars you from moving on. Menodora wouldn't want you to be stuck here in a constant state of pain.
Dane closed his eyes as his being seemed to slump.
Give me time, Ephenia. I want to move on, but
Dane breathed, picking up his hand to reach for hers, hesitating. Ephenia instead reached out and grasped his hand, touching his jaw and pulling him close as she kissed his forehead. Dane squinted his eyes hard as tears began forming. In the back of his mind, he thought he could hear Menodora whisper to him,
It is all right, Dane, my love. Move forward. Don't let your heart become a cold ember. Let it be the roaring fire I know it can be.
This time, Dane truly felt his agony hit him. But now, he wasn't afraid of reaching for another's heart, willing to provide the shelter and healing he so desperately needed. This would be his path. This would be the way to find the ultimate light once again. Here, under the blazing sky of sunset, he would find his salvation.